Welcome to the Bell Curve. Today we're diving into a legend that redefined gaming forever. Buckle up for a wild ride through hellfire and chaos. Hell on earth, shotguns, chainsaws, demons and speed. Few games have left a crater on the industry as deep as Doom. Released in 1993, it wasn't just a game, it was a revolution. A small team of rebellious developers turned a basement project into one of the most important and influential titles in gaming history. This is the story of Doom, how it was made, how it spread, and how it changed everything. Our story begins with a handful of young programmers in Mesquite, Texas. John Carmack, John Romero, Adrian Carmack, and Tom Hall. Not related despite the matching names. They weren't working out of gleaming offices, no. IDSOFTWARE was born from late nights, makeshift workspaces, and a shared belief that games could push boundaries. Before Doom though, the team made Commander Keen, colourful, cartoony, and hugely successful for Shareware. But success didn't tame them. They wanted to make something darker, faster and more extreme. Something that would melt faces, figuratively, and with enough demons perhaps, literally. The seeds of Doom were planted in ID's earlier experiments with the first-person shooter genre. Their 1991 title, Hovertank 1, put players in a tank, while Catacomb 3D, released the same year, introduced spellcasting in a fantasy world. Then came Wolfenstein 3D in 1992, with guns in your hand and Nazis in your face. It shocked people and it worked. As Doom designer John Romero calls, Catacomb 3D was basically the first FPS. Then with Wolfenstein 3D we added weapons. So with Doom, Wolfenstein 3D was our baseline, but there were so many massive leaps, not least that Doom's world changed what games looked like from then on. But the team knew Wolfenstein was just the beginning, the true revolution was still brewing. In 1992, John Carmack had a breakthrough. His engine could render fast, pseudo 3D worlds, twisting corridors, multiple floors, light and shadow. It wasn't real 3D, but it felt like it. Perfect for what they had in mind. Tom Hall originally pitched a detailed story about scientists, demons and space stations. But Romero and the others wanted less novel and more metal album cover, chainsaws, hellfire and chaos. Doom's concept was born, drawing heavily from ID's Dungeons & Dragons campaigns, where the idea of a demon-infested space base took shape, and cinematic inspirations like Alien's relentless swarms and Evil Dead 2's iconic shotgun. Romero explains, "You went into space and found hell instead of aliens. The idea of overrunning a space base with demons was from our D&D campaign. That horde of demons coming at you from all over the place was from Aliens, and then the shotgun came from Evil Dead 2. Adrian Carmack's artwork brought to life grotesque monsters, gore-soaked environments, and a world drenched in satanic imagery. Meanwhile, Bobby Prince's soundtrack, part heavy metal, part atmospheric dread, became iconic. It was raw, loud, and unapologetic. Doom wasn't just another game, it was an attitude." On December 10th, 1993, Doom was released. Not in shops, but online, through the Shareware model. The first episode was free. If you wanted the rest, you paid for it. The demand was so intense that university servers crashed as students rushed to download it. Offices ground to a halt as workers snuck in games of Doom during lunch breaks. Within weeks, millions were playing. Romero's vision for multiplayer, including the now iconic Deathmatch mode, was a last-minute addition that changed gaming forever. He recalls, "We knew when we were planning Doom that we needed multiplayer in there. Then when it was, the first thing we did was shoot each other, even though it was supposed to be co-op. Not once did we think that we needed to make Deathmatch-only levels. We didn't have time. We actually forgot about the multiplayer until October 1993, and Doom was due out in December." John said, "The word deathmatch, well, I just thought that since it was a match to the death, why not call it a deathmatch? And then came the mods. Doom was designed to be tinkered with. Players created new levels, new monsters, even entirely new games within Doom's engine. A community was born, one of the earliest examples of mod culture exploding worldwide. By 1995, it was estimated that Doom was installed on more computers than Microsoft Windows. Think about that, a free demon-slaying shooter was more widespread than the operating system itself. But Doom didn't just spread joy, it sparked fear. Parents, politicians, and religious groups attacked it for its violence and satanic imagery. It became a symbol of the so-called moral panic around video games. Tragedies in the 90s would even see Doom wrongly blamed for inspiring real-world violence. But controversy only fueled its legend. The louder the critics shouted, the more players wanted to see what the fuss was about. Doom wasn't going anywhere. Doom's success launched a franchise that has evolved dramatically over 3 decades, blending technological innovation, shifting gameplay styles, and thematic depth while centering on visceral demon-slaying combat. The classic era built directly on the original's foundation, starting with Doom 2 Hell on Earth in 1994. The sequel brought bigger, more complex levels set on a demon-invaded Earth, introducing formidable new enemies like the Archvile, Revenant, and Hell Knight, a weaker variant of the Baron of Hell. Romero reflected, Doom had possessed Marines, so why not make another that used the chain gun? John reflects, the other new enemies needed to be demons, and they needed to be bigger, like the Archvile and the Revenant with its punch and heat-seeking rockets. We felt a slightly weaker Baron from Hell would be cool, so we changed his colours and made him the Hell Knight. Then those new enemies made the levels more fun. To counter these tougher foes, ID added the legendary double-barreled super shotgun and the Megasphere power-up, combining armour and health into one potent item. Romero notes, the obvious extra weapon was the double-barreled shotgun. John said, we thought why not have a weapon that caused really devastating damage if you were up close. It was so that you could get face to face with the enemies, especially the new ones, because they had a lot more health. We created the Megasphere by combining 2 things from Doom. We put the blue armour and soul sphere into one item called the Megasphere. Megaspheres were really fun for deathmatches particularly, but they were also cool to have in levels. Expansions like Master Levels for Doom 2 in 1995, and Final Doom in 1996, with its 2 episodes, TNT, Evolution and Plutonia Experiment, further extended the chaos with community-influenced levels. Next came Doom 64 in 1997 for the Nintendo 64, a cult favourite developed by Midway Games under ID's supervision. It featured a darker, more atmospheric tone with gothic environments, larger sprites, and a new ambient soundtrack. The game embraced near total darkness to heighten tension, influencing later titles. It introduced the Unmaker, a demonic laser weapon from Doom's early concepts. As Romero recollects, the Unmaker in Doom 64 was from the original design for Doom that Tom Hall created before we started working on the game. John recollects, it was a demonic hand taken from a demon that you could have used as a weapon against other demons. For Doom 64, Midway tied the unlocking of its powers to finding artifacts. There was also a captain's hand in the original design that was going to be used as a key to open a door. After a hiatus, the franchise shifted gears with Doom 3 in 2004, reimagining the series as a survival horror experience with cutting-edge graphics powered by ID Tech 4. It introduced real-time lighting and shadows, creating dimly lit environments where demons lurked in the darkness. Lead coder Robert Duffy explains, Doom 3 was the first game that had real-time lighting and shadows. That was a signature of ID Tech 4. Robert observes, at the time a lot of gaming was moving away from the high-paced arena-type stuff. We also looked at some of the critical successes like Half-Life and other similar games. So I think we wanted a more story-based game, and survival horror fitted nicely into that. This was the first time that we were really able to do these sorts of things to that effect. The game emphasised narrative through environmental storytelling via terminal screens, and voice acting, a first for ID. Duffy adds on enemy placement. With the imps we certainly placed them where they would be crouched and in a dark spot, and I feel like the creatures acted like they preferred darkness. Robert says, I think that came out of the natural way of setting up gameplay to take advantage of the lighting and the shadows. Producer Jonathan Moses credits its success by saying, where ID saw its tech going was John Carmack's brilliance in how lighting could work to make what you saw on screen look photorealistic, while also being aware that games were becoming more story-driven. Jonathan assesses, so I think the success of Doom 3 was down to the ultimate hype of ID doing something that was revolutionary in terms of tech and was narrative-led. You needed to upgrade your PC to really get the most out of Doom 3. so it was just that hype that made it so successful. Expansions like Resurrection of Evil in 2005 and The Lost Mission 2012 in BFG Edition added more horror-fueled content. The series then went quiet until the 2016 reboot, simply titled Doom, which returned to fast-paced, brutal action while incorporating modern elements like glory kills, melee executions on weakened enemies that restore health, and enhanced verticality for exploration. Born from the cancelled Doom 4, it was unapologetically faithful to its roots. Principal mission designer Jason O'Connell details the glory kill mechanic. Prior to Doom, there were some clever systems designers prototyping different mechanics until they stumbled upon this refill mechanic, where you killed an enemy and then health or whatever dropped. Jason remarks, as the game's development moved on, we leaned into that, because it was like this book-clenching feeling when you were close to death, but it was in your power to refill. It felt like you were bringing the fight to the demons as constantly as possible, and that doing that was fueling your success. He also highlighted jumping. You jumped way higher in Doom. You couldn't jump like that in the original Doom. That started to identify verticality a lot, and it opened up exploration. This reboot revitalized the franchise, emphasizing speed and aggression over horror. Doom Eternal in 2020 pushed this further with ID Tech 7, adding more mobility tools like dashing and wall climbing, alongside deeper lore about the Doom Slayer. It generated massive revenue and received expansions, The Ancient Gods Part 1 and Part 2, expanding the story into cosmic battles. Finally, Doom the Dark Ages released in May 15, 2025, and it served as a prequel to the 2016 reboot, delving into the Doomslayer's origins in a medieval-themed hellscape. Reimagined as an armoured knight, the Slayer wields fantasy-infused weapons like a chainsaw shield hybrid, a skull-crushing mace, and even a throwable flail. Players ride massive dragons, pilot towering Atlan mechs, and battle demon hordes in vast gothic fortresses, blending signature rip-and-tear combat with epic fantasy-scale destruction. Powered by the latest ID Tech engine, it proves Doom can evolve thematically while staying eternally vicious. Across decades, each version of Doom reflected the era it was made in, from the pixelated mazes and minimal stories of the 90s, to the horror realism of the 2000s, and the high-speed, lore-rich reboots of today. Yet always stayed true to its core idea: you, a weapon, and a horde of demons that need to be destroyed. From basement coding sessions in Texas to becoming one of the most recognizable names in gaming, Doom is more than just a game. It pioneered first-person shooters, it invented the term Deathmatch, and inspired online multiplayer. It gave rise to modern communities, and it proved that games could be loud, brash, and still incredibly innovative. Today, Doom is studied in universities, celebrated in documentaries, and still played by millions. It's a franchise that refuses to die, and much like its lone marine protagonist 3 decades on, Doom remains what it always was: pure unfiltered chaos, a game that kicked down the gates of hell and invited the rest of the world inside. And that is how a basement project became a global phenomenon.